Thank you very much, Wale, for that kind introduction. I want to thank the NBCC for inviting me to speak as well as moderate on this panel, harnessing the creative industries for increased economic impact and sustainable growth. Indeed, the Nigerian creative arts and entertainment industry is currently experiencing a renaissance. And this is driven by a youthful population who are creatively inquisitive and sustained by the digital technology and telecoms revolution. The rebasing of Nigeria's GDP in 2014 highlights the impact of the creative arts and entertainment industry as a major contributor to the economy, generating, wait for it, over 1.35 trillion in revenue and employing over 1 million people, making it the second largest employer after agriculture. This emerging reality prompted the federal government to consider the creative arts and entertainment sector as a priority sector in the economic recovery and growth plan, with the aim of boosting foreign earnings and creating jobs for its teeming population. Today, we will be discussing the future of this sector with a special focus on engaging digital technology and the future of artificial intelligence in arts education and financing, commercialization of the creative industry, cultural exchanges and its impact in deepening Nigeria-British relations, investment and export opportunities. And while we're doing this, we'll also be preparing solutions to issues hindering the development of the industry, such as funding, the shortage of skills, and innovation. With me today, I have three distinguished co-speakers, all very accomplished professionals and key experts in their fields. And in no particular order, please allow me to introduce first Ojoma Ochai. Ojoma Ochai is the Director of Arts and Culture at the British Council, Nigeria, where she works across the public and private sectors to promote growth of the art sector and the creative economy between West Africa and the United Kingdom. She is a member of the UNESCO Expert Facility on the 2005 Convention on the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expression. She has also served as board chair of the Lagos Theatre Festival and the Open House Lagos. Presently, she sits on the board of the Music Museum Foundation of Nigeria. Welcome, Ojoma Ochai. There's also with me a dear friend, Polly Alakija. She is CEO of Five Cowries Arts Education Initiative, which uses the arts as a pathway to improving learning experiences. An accomplished artist, her work can be found in prestigious private and public collections all over the world. Also a trained Montessori teacher, Polly Alakija has served as chairperson of the Lagos State Council of Arts and Culture. She is an advisory board member of the Museum of Art, a director of Alliance Française Lagos, and a trustee of J.K. Randall Center of Yoruba Culture, Lagos. Let's welcome Polly Alakija. And there's also Joseph Edgar. Joseph Edgar is the director and co-founder of Hamilton and Georgia Limited. He's better known as the Duke of Shomolu, and he's a prolific author with 5 published works. Alongside his writing, Joseph enjoys a career as a respected investment banker, having served in various capacities as Executive Director of Private Wealth Advisory, BGL Securities Limited, Group Head, Wealth Management Division, City Securities, and Managing Director of Aquila Asset Management Limited. So I want to thank you all for coming on board and for speaking today on this panel. Without further ado, I'll just ask each of the speakers to start with opening remarks. Let's go with Ojoma Ochai first. Ojoma, please go on. Your opening remarks.
Thanks, Oliver. Hi, everyone. It's really good to be here. Thanks as well to the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce for inviting us to this panel today. So I just want to echo what you were saying there, Oliver, about the economic value of the creative industries. We often, in a Nigerian context, I think we often have to justify why the arts, why culture, why the creative industries are important. And I just wanted to give some additional stats to just back up that idea that beyond being a sort of nice to have thing that people do, the art and creative industries can in fact contribute to significant economic growth. So the first thing to be aware of is that the UK creative economies contribute £9 million to the British economy every hour. And so in the time it will take us to have this panel, that's £9 million contributed to the UK economy from the creative industries. If you compare the contribution of the UK creative economies in terms of gross value add, the value is about 1/3 of Nigerian GDP. And when you consider that, obviously, Nigeria has the largest economy in Africa, this means that the contribution of the UK creative economies is bigger than the GDP of several countries in Africa. So when we talk about these sectors, we're not just talking about something that people do as a hobby. There's a lot of potential. And as a country, if we're looking to trade more internationally, if we're looking to develop more international collaboration, then I would argue that the creative industries, music, fashion, film, performing and visual arts, these are all sectors where we have a strong competitive advantage. And they're sectors where we should be looking at and focusing on. I know that NBCC already know this, hence this panel, but I think it's important that we frame everything that we're saying today in this context of the fact that we have demonstrable evidence in this sector of contributing to economic growth. So that would be my opening statement. Oliver, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ojoma. That's very, very insightful. I think that best describes what we're doing today, how we can chart the progress of the sectors and how we can unlock its full potential in developing Nigeria and, of course, building cross-cultural relations between the United Kingdom and Nigeria. Now, with that, let's have a few opening remarks from none other than Polly Alakija. Please, Polly.
Good afternoon, Oliver. Good afternoon, panel, and a big thank you to NBCC for inviting me to join you this afternoon. I love it when Ojoma speaks because she just says it as it is, and she's just done my job for me. Thank you very much, Ojoma, for making that case for why we need to support the creative industry. You put the case very well, totally succinctly, and all I can do is follow up with, okay, Ojoma has articulated very clearly the value of the creative industry. Creative industries. What I feel my job partly is to help develop the capacity needed to help with that growth at all levels, from grassroots all the way up. What is it that needs to be done to develop the capacity at all levels so that we really maximize on that trajectory? So thank you very much, everybody. Delighted to be here and looking forward to the discussion.
Excellent. Very well put, Polly. I'll ask Joseph to make a few opening remarks just now.
My name is Joseph Gan, and this is a very big privilege to find myself here as a practitioner who is suffering on the fields, to be part of this August event. But I want to say something, two things very quickly now. I don't know the profile of those who are most likely listening to this conversation, because if I knew that, it would properly direct my intervention this afternoon. But I want to assume that those listening to this are those who are of interest in the general Nigerian-British trade relations at the outer level, and then most likely, then by the time we drill down, those who are stakeholders, in the entertainment space. That's one thing. The second thing I would like to say is that this panel, I was looking at Ojoma, and I was looking at Polly, and then maybe Oliver. We all seem to be on the same side. So I don't see where the fight will be this evening, because from what Oliver has said, Ojoma has strengthened it, and Polly has further strengthened it, and I'm also going to strengthen it. So where is the fight? But that said, I want to talk very, very quickly, if it's very possible for us at this panel to look at the psychology behind whatever is driving these figures. One stated very clearly that with the 200 million population, with the vast amount of talent that we have in this country, the figures that Oliver has reeled out here, the figures that Ojoma reeled out here, and the figures that are out there are very, very conservative if properly aligned and pushed. And what I think from my experience, because I'm in the middle of trying to raise funds now for a major production, is the fact that although we have moved a little bit from where we're coming from, which is heavy dependence on governments, do you get, on statutory authority for growth in the industry, we still have a lot to do to change the mindsets, change the narrative, change the outlook of not only the practitioners, but also the marketplace, of the vast, I don't like using the word potentials, of the vast, what's the word now, immense benefits you get of this industry, not only to the Nigerian economy, but also to global economy. I leave it there at this point.
Very well, Joseph. That's a very good start. You spoke about immense benefits. You spoke about conservative numbers. I think you're setting the ball, for this question and answer session. So I'll start off with you. What are the opportunities, the threats, and support, for example, financial and regulation, required to promote the Nigerian theatre art at home and abroad? You spoke earlier about the immense benefits in the sector. You spoke about the figures that I reeled out and Ojoma reeled out and Olelaki just supported as being conservative.
Yes.
So I'll kick off this question with you. What investment opportunities exist in the sector?
What investment opportunities exist in the sector?
Yes.
Now, you see, the sector, when we talk about the entertainment sector, I'm an investment banker, if I may say this at this point in time. I'm an investment banker, so I see things a little bit much more differently than the average practitioner. You get it? The average creative. Do you understand? Now, so we have opportunities there. I want to divide the sector into two now. So there's the invisible part of the sector. That's the part that we can't touch. That's the scripts, the lyrics, the songs, the sounds, the dance, the costumes. That's what I want to call the invisible part of the entertainment sector for this purpose of this conversation. And then the visible part, what you can touch, what you can feel. There's the real estate part of it. There's the hospitality part of it. There's the tourism part of it. And each of all of these sectors and much more, you get very huge opportunities for very serious investors in that sector. So I'll give you a small example now. I'm doing a small production in Rio, in Akwa Ibom, Southeast Nigeria. I'm doing very much small production because of COVID, so just 26-man cast. I generally do 200, 250, 300-man cast, but only 26-man cast. Now, there's only one hall that can meet my quality in that state of 6 million people. There's only one hall that can meet my quality. There are a few hotels that can meet my quality. There's no strong road transportation. There are no real tourism opportunities. Listen now. So if we had, for example, a major international event, or for example, we get lucky and one of these productions is a massive, massive worldwide hit. If you drive tourism, like what happened with Kuta Kute in Gambia, let's go see this place. Let's go see this location. Are you guys me now? And then very serious investors, will take advantage of these things, these benefits, these opportunities that are throwing up. Are you guys me now? To put down some very strong facilities. Which takes me back to my first point of call. We on this side, that's why I say I don't really know those who are listening to me. So I might say some things that may not really resonate with those on the British side of it. But see, I'm a Nigerian. I'm in the middle of the war. I'm coming from the trenches right now. So I can only talk about what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling. You see, the narrative has to change. Our people are still waiting for government. Government needs help. Government don't even understand. I've spoken to 5 commissioners in that state today on this production because the market has driven me to them. Again, now, but they don't really understand. Yeah, so it's for us to be able to build structures, which is what we're trying to do, that will corral private initiative into the industry, knowing fully well that this can impact on wealth creation, this can impact on wealth redistribution, this can impact on infrastructure, this can impact on hospitality. And then when you say that entertainment is the second largest employer of labor in the country, then that should make a lot of sense in a country that has over 10% unemployment rate, which is dropping.
Thank you, Joseph. I got it. Yes, you're making sense. You're making sense. That's a very useful contribution. You spoke about structures, infrastructure. That's very important. I know Ojoma's work has had to do with infrastructure, public and private sector. I said that Joseph has spoken a lot about basic infrastructure, to make sure the industry, the sectors are empowered. I know you've been doing a lot of work, in the public and private sector, encouraging partnerships, fostering development in that regard. So I wanted to speak about, what the work of British Council, what you've been doing in this regard.
All right, got it. Thank you. Just before I answer the question, though, Oliver, Joseph said there's nothing for us to fight about, but I think I found one. I think, Joseph, when you say that people are waiting for government, I'm not sure that I'd entirely agree with you. I think if we say that, then we do a disservice to the Kenneth Nebwes, the Amaka Igwes, the Deola Segos, the Blackies of this world, that even before we had these stats, were putting their sweat and their blood and their money into growing businesses and almost birthing the modern versions of these sectors that we know today to be the creative industries. So I just slightly challenge that and say that, in fact, government is riding on the wave of what individuals have done and what individuals have invested, and is only now that government is getting its head around the opportunity that the creative industries present. And so I just wanted to make that point to say all credits to the growth of our creative industries in Nigeria, or 99.9% credit, I think, has to go to the private sector. So I just wanted to respond to that. In terms of what the British Council does, we work in a number of areas in Nigeria and across the world. We work in arts and culture, which we're talking about today, which obviously also relates to the creative economy, but we also work in education. In education, we work both in basic and higher education. We support international partnerships, we support policy, we support research and so on. And then we also work in what we call inclusive communities, where we support work in the justice sector, for example, around gender-based violence. But in the arts, our key focus is really about strengthening cultural exchange. So across all of the arts sectors, supporting people to connect and network with the UK. And we do this through a number of initiatives. We offer grants for people to engage with their peers from the UK, to collaborate on projects, to go to activities in the UK and vice versa. So we have grant schemes that do that. And then we also support the creative economy. In the creative economy, we do a range of things. We do lots of research. We did the first mapping of the creative industries in Lagos back in 2013. But we also do all kinds of other research. We've done a landscape analysis of the skills provision for the creative industries in Nigeria. We've done research about the festivals landscape in Nigeria. So we do lots of research that can shape the work that other people in the industry do. We also do a lot of support for creative entrepreneurship. And so we fund a range of workshops, boot camps, incubator programs. We've worked across the country, in Owerri, in Lagos, in Abuja, in Kano, to support hubs, to support universities and various kinds of institutions with technical assistance, with development of curriculum, to sort of develop the creative entrepreneurship offer that they have. And so we do have a massive program around skills provision. And then I would suppose that another role that we see for ourselves is just advocating this idea, as we were saying at the top of the call, of creative industries as these viable things that have both sort of cultural value and economic value, and raising that awareness and advocating for that to happen with working very closely with Nigerian partners. Everything that we do is led by the partners that we work with in Nigeria and led by what the governments are interested in. So we also do have MOUs, for example, with state governments, with the federal government around specific areas of interest in the last few years. So I'm just going to stop there in terms of what we do as the British Council.
Thank you very much, Joma. That's a whole lot of work. Now, I know that Polly Lakija wears a lot of hats. She's also served as the director, or is it, of Lagos State Council for Arts and Culture, and of course, she's CEO of 5 Cowries Arts Educative Initiative. Polly, please tell us, what role does education play, particularly when we know that the majority, a huge percentage of Nigerians are youth, and we've got to start preparing for the future. What role can education play? What conversations should we be having, upholding our curriculum? Please tell us a little bit about this.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Nice question, and it could potentially be a very, very long answer. I just want to reflect back on what Joma said just now about the strength of the private sector, the creative industries in this country. It's absolutely extraordinary. So, Joma, just welcome. Fully in agreement with you. We have an extraordinary private sector creative industries sector, and it's a manifestation of the incredible innate vitality, energy, creativity in the Nigerian people. So how do we get that out of people? How do we develop that? How do we support that? It has to be done through education. Our educational system, we have to admit, is challenged, and we all experienced what happened last year. Our systems and structures that we have in place were not able to cope with the pandemic and the knock-on fallout. So what needs to be done? We have currently, beginning of last year, we were talking about 10 million children out of school. We're now looking at 12 million and counting as a result of the school closures and pandemic. We do have an educational system in crisis. Even before the pandemic, you had to question the educational outcomes we had. We're having, would speak to employers time and time again who would talk about the fact that they would be interviewing university graduates and they didn't have the skills they needed. And when you ask people to articulate what are those skills, they would reference creative skills. They would reference things like creativity, collaboration, communication, critical thinking. Those are the core skills that our young people all need in this 21st century. And those are the skills that our educational system is failing our young people in. Our young people can possibly, if they're lucky enough, pass exams. Do they have the skills needed for the 21st century workplace? Do they have the skills needed to lead them into jobs in the creative industries? And the creative industries offers so many people from all walks of life a way forward and a livelihood. So how do we better prepare young people for that pathway, and do it in such a way that enables them to have multiple pathways, not just one? I don't want to go on about the sewing machine issue. Buying somebody a sewing machine is not allowing them to enter the creative industries. We need to look at the whole infrastructure, the whole skill set behind what it takes to take that person behind the sewing machine into a designer, into setting up a business and taking it to the next level. And so, yeah, I focus very much on developing those skills in young people, work with a lot of university graduates, university students, and develop programs for learning. As a result of the school closures last year, we were able to have a very honest conversation about alternative education. Of course, I'm sort of a huge advocate for educating through the arts. I'm a huge advocate for educating and learning differently, for using fun to engage. So prior to the school closures, we were kind of dismissed quite a lot, quite hard to have conversations with mainstream stakeholders. But throughout last year in school closures, we were able to carry on engaging directly in communities, engaging with community leaders, educators, health workers, family leaders, religious leaders in communities by delivering educational resources based on arts and culture activities. So we were able to continue to support continuous learning throughout the pandemic last year. And through these creative educational resources, help young people hopefully develop those 4 C's that are so vital in skills that are vital in the 21st century workplace.
Fantastic. Well, very well put, Polly. And if, Odama, can you just add another perspective to what Polly has said? I just want you to speak about how the British Council, I know you spoke earlier broadly about British Council's work here in Nigeria. Can you speak about what funding opportunities are available for the youth and the creative sector? Specifically speak to those opportunities and how the British Council has supported the development of creative skills in Nigerian youth. Because Polly's touched about what she's doing with youth, I just want you to talk about what the British Council has done in this regard, including speaking specifically to the opportunities, especially with funding for the youth.
So, thanks for the question, Oliver. So in terms of British Council funding, we do run grant schemes. And so every year we would have, 3 to 5 different funding opportunities. And it ranges from, a couple £1,000 to travel to the UK and attend a conference, or to bring one artist over to a poetry festival or whatever, to 100 to do a film incubation program. So it really depends on the sort of priority for the year and the sort of schemes that we open. The way that we tend to work is that we can only work in response to calls for proposal. We're mindful that one is obviously for transparency, because the fact that anybody knows me, for example, shouldn't mean they can get funding versus anybody else. And so from that perspective, we have to advertise everything and we have to do open calls for transparency. But it also means that we only offer a broad framework. We don't specify what the work itself should be. For example, if we're doing cultural exchange, we will say cultural exchange is focused on 18 to 35, which is our target age group. And it just needs to be one of the art forms. And beyond that, we don't really have any views of what the content should be, because we believe it's important to be led by what the people want to do. And so that's another reason why we work through open calls. And then in terms of the skills we've done specifically, we've worked, at the moment, actually, we're working with Lagos State on a script development project. So in partnership with Creative England and Biola Alabi Media, we're supporting Lagos State Employment Trust Fund to work with a number of young people to develop scripts. And it's based on this idea, I'm sure Joseph knows this, that in terms of our scripts, there needs to be a lot more investment in developing them to the sort of, I don't want to say international standard, because I think that's a bit of a myth when it comes to creative industries, but that's another conversation for another day, and it's controversial. But it's about partnerships to strengthen scripts, essentially. And so they've been in a 1-year program looking to develop scripts. And our sort of thesis for that project is, if we can demonstrate a link between better script development and better economic performance of films, we can incentivize the sort of commercial film sector to invest more in script development. So that's one example of a project that we're doing, but we're doing various other things. We had an incubator program in Abuja last year, where we worked with people working in fashion through a 9-month incubation program. So they got training, they got mentoring, They got seed funding at the end of the process. A number of entrepreneurs got £5,000 of seed funding. We've done the same in Lagos. We're going to launch similar in Kano and so on. And then finally, one area that we're increasingly interested in, partly because of COVID, but it was an area we started to work in before COVID, is digital skills. And it's based on this idea that the future of the creative industries is digital. I dare say that it is digital. So distribution, creation, consumption, increasingly is based on digital capability. And so we're really keen that young people that are working in the creative industries in Africa are developing those digital skills. And so that's an area that we will see a lot more focus in the coming years.
Thank you, Ojoma. And taking up from what Ojoma has said, I'll go straight away to Joseph Edgar. And Joseph, you spoke about, she said that digitization is the way forward. I'm paraphrasing her now. First, would you agree? And if it indeed is the way forward in the creative arts sector, what opportunities can you see for business between the UK and Nigeria in this regard?
Okay, so it's no gainsaying that that's a statement of fact. It's no gainsaying that even before COVID, this was the direction in which the markets were going. You understand? And COVID has now come to fast track it. Do you understand? And then everybody, you can see the kinds of figures being announced by firms like Netflix, firms like Zoom, firms that have taken over, that have taken advantage of this huge something. MTN just announced a very humongous figure on the back of the large increased use of data on the back of the pandemic. But that said, we still have to be a little bit more careful because of issues of copyright, because of issues of culture. I was just having a conversation earlier this morning with somebody, and I said, and I'm sorry if this might sound a little bit, but let me just say because it will further highlight this thing. So here in Nigeria, when you say, "Are you mad?" just it's a rhetoric question. In most cases, a statement. Some people laugh it off. Is, "Are you mad?" It doesn't mean are you mad in that context. I don't understand what I'm trying to say. But if you told somebody in another country, "Are you mad?" you can end up in jail. Do you get it? So so digitalization breaks down those boundaries, breaks down the limitations, breaks down those things that breaks down some level of control. Do you understand? And that's why we have to be very, very careful in throwing these things. Because here we are pushing private initiative, again, but at the same time, there will be some level of government control in terms of, and that's mean I'm using this word very, very guardedly and very, very carefully in terms of what's that word now? Ojoma, remind me now. Censorship.
I won't remind you. I was hoping you could remember.
Yeah, in terms of censorship. So I know it's a two-way thing. So just last night, my daughter came to me. My daughter is 17 years old. She just got admission to UK school, and she's like, Joe, because she calls me Joe, she says, "I want to start watching Netflix." And I said, "Why do you want to start watching Netflix?" Yeah, because there's a lot of same-sex situations. Do you get? And it's affecting me. Just that, and that's me now torn between being a Nigerian father and a modern day father. I see now. So like I didn't know what to say, but that throws up that perfectly throws up the challenges that we'll face with uncontrolled, rapidly pushed digitalization in the entertainment sector on both sides. Do you get? If not carefully handled, it could erode culture on both sides. So just as we have stuff from the other from offshore that may not really sit down well with our own traditional values and ethos, if I use that word, again, we today may not have, they may find some of our own things a little bit disturbing. Do you understand? Like polygamy. Do you get, like the way we treat our women and things like that. Do you understand? Yeah. So this is a platform of Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce, and it's supposed to be a business platform. I do not think we should look only at the commercial benefits that will come from digitization. Again, I will also look at the cultural implications also of these things with a view of getting middle grounds that would allow for continuous, mutually beneficial, respectful interaction and engagements in the sector.
Thank you very much, Joseph. That's quite illuminating. I'll throw the question now to Ollie Alakija. There's been so much talk about digitization, getting on the digital environment. I mean, with the advent of the coronavirus pandemic, we've seen accelerated growth on these platforms. Of course, in the visual arts, you see online exhibitions, you see art fairs going online. What opportunities, can visual artists embrace, in showing their work, collaborating internationally, and what partnerships between the Nigeria and the United Kingdom can we expect, or should we advocate for in this regard?
There seem to be three questions in one there. Can I respond to the question and the focus on the digital space?
Absolutely.
Let me just touch on digital and learning. Beginning of the pandemic, of course, everybody was hopping online, and online learning was the buzzword, and that's where a lot of investment was made. As a teacher, as an educator, I'm not a strong advocate for online learning. Real learning tends not to happen online, and I think that's being borne out now around the world. Children are returning back to school, and teachers are realizing they actually need to go almost back to the beginning, that children, more privileged children, the privileged children who've been able to be online, actually haven't learned terribly much. So massive investment in online learning, but actually when children are online, do they really learn? How much of a real learning experience it is? We need to question that. That's in the international context. Let's look at the Nigerian context, where, let's face it, 95% of the children in Nigeria are not online and not going to be online for a very long time to come. There are moves to get Nigerian schools online, with considerable investment being made at federal level in partnership with partners like UNICEF. So it's very much something that's being invested in, but we're a long way from that happening. Meanwhile, as I said, we've got these 10 to 12 million children out of school, even on a normal day. So online learning is part of the solution. It is not the solution. So Five Carriers, and we are developing online learning platforms, but they're more for repositories and spaces where we can share information with other educators and other teachers across the continent and beyond borders. That's online learning. Your second part of your question seems to be, what are the opportunities online and digital for artists and creatives? Of course, yeah, it is now part of the new normal, and moving forward, I can see that in all sectors of the creative industries. We're going to look at blended solutions. Of course, nothing can replace the real, the going to the museum, going to the theatre, going to the music festival. But I think we're going to look at restrictions in place for a very long time to come. And perhaps the live and the real experience is going to become increasingly elitist and out of reach of most people, because it's not going to be very affordable. You look at the price of the average theatre ticket, it's going to go up substantially if you can only half fill a house. So therefore, the only way to have those experiences for a broader audience is going to be also online. So of course, there's going to be opportunities there across the board in the creative industry sector. Partnerships, that's the third part of your question. Of course, always, I'm a strong advocate for partnerships, especially when you're talking British Nigeria. As I sit here, of course, I'm clearly from the UK. I'm kind of the product of such a a concept. And so everything I do is a result really of a British-Nigerian partnership. I think that's kind of who I am. And also that's when cool stuff happens, is when you get two parties coming together and exchange ideas and inspire each other. And absolutely, again, I'm going to sing the praises of the British Council, and a lot of what I do is a result of the support from organisations like the British Council, who encourage me to partner with cultural institutions in UK, who I remain in contact with today. I work very closely with all the cultural organisations that the British Council has introduced me to. There are endless opportunities for partnership and exchange, increasing interest internationally in connecting with the continent, connecting with Nigeria, connecting communities in the diaspora. I'm always staggered at how few partnerships are actually happening. For me, it's a natural thing. It's an easy thing. It's what I've done all my life. So for me, I always find it very strange that there's not more collaborations, not more partnerships. I always just say, it's not that difficult, guys. But for a lot of people, the structures and the systems are not in place. So again, British Council, that's one of the most amazing roles they perform, is enabling those partnerships to happen. We do always have considerable challenges. The last program we were meant to be running with support from the British Council was to bring 6 teachers out here at the beginning of 2019 to work with teachers in Lagos State. Even pre-COVID, we had to cancel it because of security concerns. So we have other challenges we need to address. But in terms of interest, in terms of opportunities, it is endless. There's so many potential avenues for partnerships. In response to the events of last year with Black Lives Matter, increasing focus internationally on rewriting history, relooking histories, how we retell histories, how we present histories to diverse communities around the world. That's really bolstered the enthusiasm and the interest in really connecting to places like Nigeria. So yeah, I mean, I'm spending an awful lot of my time at the moment talking to institutions in the UK to see how we can collaborate. So lots and lots of opportunities there. And really what needs to happen to support those partnerships is back to the basic infrastructure. So back full circle to government's role in all of this. We need that basic infrastructure sorted out. We need our security sorted out. We need transport to be better. We need internet to be better. So we need sort of basic infrastructure bolstered to make those collaborations and those partnerships a little bit smoother and easier.
Thank you very much, Polly. And the last question I'll feel to the panelists before we have some closing remarks is to Ojoma. Now, Ojoma, I know that you're a member of the UNESCO facility on the 2005 Convention on Protection and Promotion of Diversity and Cultural Expression. Now we speak about digitization, embracing the online environment, artists and creatives, expressing themselves and reaching new and broader audiences. So the question I'd ask is, what are the threats? On the online space, there might be threats with intellectual property rights. How can we mitigate? What can the British Council do with, in conjunction with the Nigerian government in protecting artists and creatives? Because of course, embracing digital environment will come with its risk. Thank you.
Thanks, Oliver. So I think, interestingly, in the work that I do with UNESCO, a lot of my focus at the moment is about this very thing, digital. I'm writing a paper on the digital environment for the global creative industries and looking at trends in artificial intelligence, machine learning, extended reality, blockchain, so a number of areas, looking at the impact on creative industries. And I think the first point to make is that the shift is certainly more fundamental than just distribution. I think distribution, which is where the IP question comes in, not exclusively, but often when we talk about IP in the context of digital, we mean you're putting your content online, therefore you're not getting paid. But I almost feel like, no, I don't know how to say this, but that's the least of our worries, frankly, in terms of the digital transformation that's happening. I think the bigger question we should be asking is, how can we facilitate African ownership of platforms? How can we make sure that Africa is at the forefront of developing the blockchain technology that will protect intellectual property online? Like those big things. Because I feel like if we're focused on how can I make sure my content is not copied on the internet, it's kind of energy chasing the smallest part of the pie. So I feel like to be asking those big, audacious questions and saying, if intellectual property protection on the internet is going to be a problem, how can technologies from Africa, how can technologies from Nigeria solve that? I don't think it's a question of regulation. I do not believe that government have a strong role necessarily to play in this, because as they regulate, new technology comes out that overtakes the regulation. So for me, it's more an innovation question and saying, how are we working with engineering students in universities? How are we working with these young people that are doing really interesting things in fintech, for example? How might we create those partnerships to allow us capitalize on the internet? And then another thing I was thinking about is we need new models. We need new business models for the creative industries. I feel like it's impossible for this digital transformation to happen that rely on old business models. And the old business models being you sell a record and the money you make is dependent on the number of records you sell. The context where that was the case is so vastly different to now. That, again, to my earlier point, I think we just need to be rethinking the whole where the money is going to come from. Because my fear is if we don't, we're asking the wrong questions in a way. Because we'll be trying to catch value when the boss, like, that one has gone, let's just forget it, So I feel like the bigger question is, how can we innovate around the emerging trends that will allow us almost leapfrog, in the way that with digital, we've leapfrogged and we're at the sort of forefront of fintech and financial inclusion, for example, with tech. I feel like creative industries is another area where we can do that and just completely change the game because we're not trying to play catch up.
Thank you very much, Ojoma. Changing the game, asking the big questions, being innovative. I think that these, are very important for these digital times that we're in. You also talked about looking at business models and adopting new business models. There are various opportunities, like the previous speakers have elucidated, various opportunities. Someone spoke about tourism, Olia Lakaja has been hampering on education, changing the curriculum, re-educating, our youth for the future. I think all of these, bring us to one point. The new opportunities that we can encourage between Nigeria and the UK, there's technology, that we can adopt, to create new platforms, change business models. The opportunities for tourism, the opportunities for online platform viewing rooms, the opportunities for artists, not just to, focus on only, their own intellectual property, but ask the bigger questions in positioning Nigeria in Africa. The opportunities for advisories, the opportunities, like Ojoma has said, for fintech, the opportunities for those who would give art valuation. Blockchain technology is another opportunity. And I think the UK is at the forefront of technology. And of course, Nigeria and Africa will have our own unique creativity. And I think that, bringing these two potentials together can create so many opportunities for the growth, of Nigeria, for the growth of the UK creative sector, and building cross-cultural relations between both countries, of course. I think with this, we'll just ask a few questions, take a few questions from the audience. If there are a few questions, and if there are none, I would say that rightly so, because the speakers have given, this topic, a very for the free treatment. So with that, I'll just ask the speakers to make a few closing remarks. And I'll begin with Olia Lakaja.
Thank you for having me here this afternoon. It's been a great conversation. Very great, Joseph, Ojoma, to hear your thoughts and your comments. There's always just so much to do, isn't there? So many opportunities. So absolutely, that's what keeps us all energized and moving and shaking, because of the incredible opportunities that are out there, and always very exciting. Always huge potential, lots of challenges though. So it's been a great conversation, and I look forward to further conversations in a similar vein. Thanks very much.
And Joseph Edgar?
Yeah, okay. So let me just thank the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce for this unique opportunity. I've learned two things today. I usually call myself the outsider insider because I just came into the sector 3 years ago. I've been in banking 22 years, and I just came in 3 years ago to see what we can do. So I am very impressed. If that doesn't come out cocky with what I've heard with what the Madam Mrs. Alakija has been doing, trying the areas of education. That's quite very, very huge, because the bane of our underdevelopment as a country, as a people, is education. Our people are not sufficiently educated, and even those who are educated, do not have the right type of education to apply to the things that we need to do in the 21st century world. And that's why we seem to be lacking behind, despite the fact that we have some of the most brilliant minds in this country, anywhere in the world. And then also with the British Council has been part of our lives in this country. I was born in 1969. That makes me 52 years old. And from the moment I opened my eye, I've known about the British Council. You used to go to the British Council, you used to have a library somewhere in Kingsway Road, and then you go there, and then once you are a member of the British Council library, it was kind of, it was aspirational. Do you understand? So I let me just opportunity to thank the British Council for all they've done for our people, especially in the areas of education, very key. Because what I always tell people is that I believe very strongly in this country. Very strongly in this country. And in the last 1 year, I've stopped using the word potential. Because for the last 52 years, if we talk about potential, Nigeria's potential, we don't have potential again. It's happening. It's happening. So we now have a new generation of Nigerians who do not think like our generation. Our generation is the last generation that was born into servitude. We were educated to serve. This generation is a generation that has been trained, weaned, developed to move. And that's why we begin to see the kinds of things that they are doing. Just 2 days ago, a Nigerian firm was valued at $1 billion and raised about $100-something million on the New York Stock Exchange. And the British Council has played a very powerful role in creating these new mutants, if I can call them that. So we're having a large population of Nigerians in the diaspora, young Nigerian diaspora, who are sufficiently educated, who have been ingrained into the international system, who will either come back home to make this change or stay there to make this change. Nigeria in the last 5 years have earned more money from diaspora receipts than from oil. You see now? So I'm very, very optimistic about this country. And I know that in my lifetime, this country will be tougher for the world.
Thank you very much, Joseph. It's music to Ojoma's ear, of course. Aspirational membership of the British Council Library, and of course potential. So your closing remarks, Ojoma.
Sure. First of all, Joseph, can I just say, whatever water you're drinking, can I have some? Because you don't have a day over 35. So my closing remarks, I'm just going to echo what Joseph has said about this thing about potential. One of the things that we're preoccupied with at the British Council in Africa at the moment is this idea of narratives. And we've seen increasingly that there's I want to say there's power in the tongue, but I don't want to start preaching. But there's a real problem with the way that we talk about the continent. And I'm guilty of this as well. So I'll give you an example. So we talk about, for example, 50% of Nigerians are not connected to the internet. But you know the flip side of that story is that 50% are connected to the internet. If there's 200 million of us, that's 100 million people that are connected to the internet. And so we've been researching it and thinking about it and saying, actually, there's a real problem with how we talk about, and it's not just Nigeria, the countries of Africa, when we talk about our systems, when we talk about our people, and it has a real impact on willingness to engage with the continent. Because if all people are hearing is everything that's wrong, then nobody's going to want to trade. Nobody's going to want to collaborate. Nobody's going to want to do international partnerships. And so I'm just going to close by saying we need new narratives. We need new stories. We need new words to use to describe Nigeria and the continent of Africa.
Thank you very much, Ojoma, for new narratives, new stories, and new perspectives. I'd like to thank my co-speakers, Polly Alakija, Joseph Edgar, and of course, Ojoma Ochai. I'd also like to thank the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity, and hopefully we should have many more conversations, because it's a very serious and pertinent subject. And of course, like Joseph has mentioned, we can't keep speaking about potential without having an actualization. Thank you very much. God bless you all.